Get ready for the dictation. Dictation will start in 5 seconds. Start. Mr. Vice Chairman, I wish to make a few observations of a general nature on the appropriation bill. I know that this is an appropriation bill and not the finance bill, but perhaps it is permissible to make a reference to the policies which underlie this bill. The bill, in its broad feature, is having regard to all the circumstances that prevail in this country, a reasonable measure and deserving all the support of this House. We were left behind 200 years back in the struggle for life. The Industrial Revolution bypassed us. We are now in the atomic age and we have somehow or other, if we wish to exist as a decent country in the world, to make up for lost time, we have to provide for our people a higher standard of living, and that higher standard of living we can provide only by increasing production, and increased production involves increased expenditure. You cannot have increased expenditure without heavy taxation, and it is inevitable, therefore, that the tendency to tax more and more should increase with the expansion of states' activities. We wish to usher in a socialist economy. Let us be clear as to what we mean by a socialist economy. We have heard a great deal about the private sector and the public sector. Well, we have got a mixed system of economy, and I suppose we have to be fair to the private sector. But there is just one thing about it that you must be clear about. In a socialist economy, the direction of investment and the control of investment must rest in the hands of the state. In a socialist economy, the public sector must dominate the private sector. All this is vital for a socialist economy. I was glad for that reason to find, as an ordinary citizen who was engaging himself in legal studies, that we have nationalized life insurance. I hope we shall maintain and continue that policy. I can see no alternative to expansion of state activity in all directions that concern the common man. It is only in some such way that we shall be able to provide employment to our hungry millions. Of course, it does not mean that every tax is a good tax. As one who rather likes to be described as a socialist, I have a little objection to indirect taxation. I think the better way to deal with the problem of taxation is to tax those who are in a position to bear the burden of taxation. We find the richer classes always saying that the taxation is very heavy. Even if the taxation was moderate, they would say it was heavy. But it is extraordinary that when once a tax of a direct nature has been levied, the industry is able ultimately to adjust itself to the conditions imposed by the tax, and therefore we have to do a little dynamic thinking in these matters. I does not mean that every item of taxation is a right item. Personally, I agree with my honorable friend that a tax on salt or a tax on food grains is not perhaps an ideal tax. It is not a right tax and it should be levied, if it has to be levied at all, with extreme moderation. But my general point of view is that I would favor more direct taxation and less indirect taxation. May I just say that planning needs trained taxation. Personal, we cannot in the 20th century compete with the advanced countries of the world without trained personnel, and it is for that reason I am a little worried as one who has been connected with education for well over 35 years in my state about the rapid fall in our university standards. Now I speak with some knowledge of this question. I have been connected as an examiner with many Indian universities. I know them. I am in contact with our young men, and it is very painful for me to find that they are not able to express themselves today in any language whatever. It is not as if they are able to express themselves very well in Hindi. I should be happy if they were able to express themselves well in Hindi, but the distressing feature is that the vast majority of our students are not well up in their studies, and the tragedy is that they are not able to express themselves in any language properly. Of course, there is overcrowding in the universities. I am not complaining against this overcrowding, and I think education is the birthright of every student. I visualize a time when education in all its aspects will be as free as the air that we breathe. The only thing that we should require or we should demand is the capacity to profit by higher education. Higher education must not be made too expensive for the poor. After all, the unfortunate section of the community has a right to a better deal, but what I am worried about is the fall in standards. We cannot ignore the claims of expansion, and there has been a considerable expansion of secondary education in our state. I think it is right that there should be this expansion. The question, however, is how are we going to reconcile the claims of expansion with the claims of efficiency? I am all in favor of diversification of our educational system, but my mere diversification of education, you will not be able to solve the problem of unemployment among the educated unemployed. You will merely substitute a class of specialist unemployed for the general unemployed today. How are you going to tackle this problem? I think it is unnecessary for us to insist upon uniformity of standards in all our higher educational institutions in the country. The view has also been put forward by the ministry that there should be uniformity of standards in all the universities. Stop.